gentlemen of the convention, the senator from Arizona, the Honorable Barry M. Goldwater, has asked for recognition, and at this time it is with great pleasure that I recognize Senator Goldwater.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, delegates to the convention and fellow Republicans, I respectfully ask the chairman to withdraw my name from nomination. Please. I release my delegation from their pledge to me, and while I am not a delegate, I would suggest that they give these votes to Richard Nixon. Now, Mr. Chairman, with your kind permission and indulgence, as a conservative Republican, I would like to make a few statements that will not take more than a few moments, and I think might help in this coming election. We are conservatives. This great Republican Party is our historic house. This is our home. Now, some of us don't agree with every statement in the official platform of our party, but I might remind you that this is always true in every platform of an American political party. Both of the great historic parties represent a broad spectrum of views spread over a variety of individual and group convictions. Never are all of these views expressed totally and exclusively in the platform of either party. But we can be absolutely certain of one thing: in spite of the individual points of difference, the Republican platform deserves the support of every American over the blueprint for socialism presented by the Democrats. Over the years, however, it is clear what the historic position of both the great parties has been. There has been a real difference overall in the two great parties. I might suggest to you that during the past 30 years, it is true beyond any doubt that those with more radical views have felt more at home in the Democrat Party, while those with strong historic beliefs have felt more at home in the Republican Party. The same condition prevails today, yet if each segment, each section of our great party were to insist on the complete and unqualified acceptance of its views, if each viewpoint were to be enforced by a Russian-type veto, the Republican Party would not long survive. There are tides of sentiment, tides of belief that rise and fall inside the party. And under these changes in emphasis, the basic core convictions of the party endure from generation to generation. Now, radical Democrats who rightfully fear that the American people will reject their extreme program in November are watching this convention with eager hope that some split may occur in our party. I'm telling them now that no such split will take place. This very morning, the press carried the story that the nominee for the vice presidency on the Democrat ticket was speaking hopefully of a split in the Republican Party. Let him know that the conservatives of the Republican Party do not intend by any act of theirs to turn this country over by default to a party which has lost its belief in the dignity of man, a party which has no faith in our economic system, a party which has come to believe that the United States is a second-rate power. I am proud to call myself a Republican as well as a conservative. And let me tell you something. And let me tell you something, and let me remind the members of the press who might think otherwise. I've been campaigning across this country for 6 years for Richard Nixon. And I see no reason to change my mind tonight. Now, you conservatives and all Republicans, I'd like you to listen to this. While Dick and I may disagree on some points, there are not many, I would not want any negative action of mine to enhance the possibility of a victory going to those who by their very words have lost faith in America. I know that conservatives here and in November will show the strong sense of responsibility which is a central characteristic of the conservative temper. We must remember that Republicans have not been losing elections because of more Democrat votes. Now get this, we have been losing elections because conservatives too often fail to vote. Why is this? And you conservatives think this over. We don't gain anything when you get mad at a candidate because you don't agree with his every philosophy. We don't gain anything when you disagree with a platform and then do not go out and work and vote for your party. I know what you say. You say, I'll get even with that fellow. I'll show this party something. But what are you doing when you stay at home? You are helping the opposition party elect candidates dedicated to the destruction of this country. And I, as a conservative, we have lost election after election in this country in the last several years because conservative Republicans get mad and stay home. Now I implore you, forget it. We've had our chance, and I think the conservatives have made a splendid showing at this convention. We've had our chance, we've fought our battles. Now let's put our shoulders to the wheel of Dick Nixon and push him across the line. Let's not lag back. This country is too important for anyone's feelings. This country and its majesty is too great for any man, be he conservative or liberal, to stay home and not work just because he doesn't agree. Let's grow up, conservatives. Let's, if we want to take this party back, and I think we can someday, let's get to work. I am a conservative, and I'm going to devote all my time from now until November to electing Republicans from the top of the ticket to the bottom of the ticket. And I call upon my fellow conservatives to do the same. Just let us remember that we are facing Democrat candidates and a Democrat platform that signify a new type of New Deal, far more menacing than anything we have seen in the past. just remember this. The Democratic Party is no longer the party of Jefferson, Jackson, and Woodrow Wilson. It is now the party of Bowles, Galbraith, and Walter Reuther. Thank you.
Senator Goldwater certainly didn't yield anything in making that speech. He said he still hoped that the conservatives could gain control of the party and thought they would. But on the other hand, it was a powerful campaign speech for Vice President Nixon.
Certainly put the frosting on the cake for him. Senator is one of the most articulate men in the Senate, and he just proved it again.
We saw Ezra Taft Benson, the Secretary of Agriculture, a moment ago. He is in the box of Vice President Nixon, although he has been somewhat critical of, at least cool toward the Vice President in the past, and only last weekend said he thought Rockefeller would make a better candidate than Nixon. But tonight he is in Nixon's box. Another bit of frosting on the cake.
Yes, all is unity.
CBS News has just learned that Ambassador Henry Cabot Lodge, the apparent choice of Vice President Nixon for the vice presidential nomination, will fly to Chicago from New York tomorrow afternoon. He's going to arrive here only at 6:15 p.m. Chicago time. That's just shortly before tomorrow evening's session begins, and it may be even after the session begins. There's some talk of stepping up the hour of beginning tomorrow night because the vice presidential nominations and balloting will take place tomorrow instead of tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen of the convention, at the request directed to me as chairman of this convention by the Honorable Barry M. Goldwater that his name be withdrawn from nomination, I now declare his name so withdrawn from nomination in this convention. Now, before I proceed with the further business of this session of the convention, which shall be the last major matter before the convention this evening, I want to again thank all of you delegates and all of our guests in this convention for your splendid attention and your fine cooperation in carrying on the serious business of the convention. As I said earlier, it is serious business because in this convention we're nominating the next President and Vice President of the United States. Now, ladies and gentlemen, delegates, the time has come for the calling of the roll for voting on the nomination for President of the United States. The name of each state will be called, and as it is called, the chairman of that delegation will rise and announce the vote. The Secretary of the Convention, Mrs. Elizabeth Heffelfinger, will call the roll, and if you will be attentive and quiet and respond quickly, the roll call can be quickly completed. Mrs. Heffelfinger. Will the tally clerks please come forward?
Could Mr. Bartlett then check it after me?
Yeah.
Joe.
Is that going to be awkward for you up there?
Yeah, a little bit, yes. Where is he? Alabama, 22.
Mr. Chairman, Alabama cast 22 votes for Richard Nixon.
You want to check it after me? You read that.
We will keep the tabulation with our IBM machines here, as you see on your screen.
Alaska, 6.
Mr. Chairman, Alaska votes 6 votes for Mr. Nixon.
Want to do it? You do it quick.
Alaska, 6 votes for Richard Nixon.
Arizona.
Mr. Chairman, honoring the request of the distinguished Senator Barry Goldwater, I hereby cast 14 votes for a great American the next President of the United States of America, and move that this convention by acclamation nominate Richard Nixon as President of this party.
To nominate by acclamation under the Republican convention rules requires a suspension of the rules, which requires a two-thirds vote. However, that could be done by a voice vote if the chairman so rules.
The chair desires to announce that under the rules under which this convention is operating and by which we are governed, the roll call of the states must be completed. And after that roll call is completed, then the chair will recognize the delegate from Arizona to make the motion he has just made.
The motion could still be made to suspend that rule, but apparently Chairman Halleck is not going to entertain such a motion.
Arizona, 14 votes for Richard Nixon.
No, for Goldwater. Isn't it? Oh, I beg your pardon. Arkansas,
Mr.
16.
Mr. Chairman, Arkansas casted 16 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Arkansas, 16 votes for Richard Nixon.
California, 70.
Mr. Chairman, with very great pride, and for her distinguished native son, the next president of our republic, California, votes 70 votes for Vice President Richard M. Nixon.
California, 70 votes for Richard Nixon.
Colorado, 18.
Colorado proudly casts 18 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Colorado, 18 votes for Richard Nixon.
Connecticut, 22.
Mr. Chairman, Connecticut casts its 22 votes for Vice President Richard M. Nixon.
Connecticut, 22 votes for Richard Nixon.
Delaware, 12.
Delaware casts 12 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Delaware, 12 votes for Richard Nixon.
Florida, 26.
Florida votes 26 votes for Richard Nixon.
Florida, 26 votes for Richard Nixon.
Georgia, 24.
Mr. Chairman, Georgia votes 24 votes for Richard Nixon.
Georgia, 24 votes for Richard Nixon.
Hawaii, 12 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Hawaii casts its 12 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Hawaii, 12 votes for Richard Nixon.
Idaho, 14.
Mr. Chairman, Idaho cast 14 votes for Richard Nixon.
Idaho, 14 votes for Richard Nixon.
Illinois, 60.
Mr. Chairman, Illinois 100 years ago, the state of Abraham Lincoln, becomes tonight the state of Richard Nixon with 60 votes.
With all the states going for Nixon, Nebraska ought to be the state to put him over the top, according to my arithmetic, Ed.
Indiana, 32.
Governor Handley of Indiana, by virtue of the primary last May, where Richard Nixon defeated and overruled Jack Kennedy by over 75,000 votes, we cast 32 votes for Richard Nixon.
Indiana, 32 votes for Richard Nixon.
Iowa, 26 votes.
Iowa cast 26 votes for Richard Nixon.
Iowa, 26 votes for Richard Nixon.
Kansas, 22 votes.
Mr. Chairman, unlike our Democrat colleagues from Kansas who went all the way to Los Angeles to hold a caucus only, we came here to vote. Kansas, not operating under the unit rule, cast the individual vote of each delegate, totaling 22 votes for Richard Nixon.
Kansas, 22 votes for Richard Nixon.
Kentucky, 26 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Kentucky cast 26 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Kentucky, 26 votes for Richard Nixon.
Louisiana, 26 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Louisiana cast 16 votes for Richard M. Nixon, and in appreciation of the fine remarks made here tonight, 10 votes for Barry Goldwater.
Louisiana, 16 votes for Richard Nixon, 10 votes for Goldwater.
Maine, 16 votes.
Maine cast 16 votes for Richard Nixon.
Maine, 16 votes for Richard Nixon.
Maryland, 24 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Maryland cast 24 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Maryland cast 24 votes for Richard Nixon.
Massachusetts, 38 votes.
Massachusetts cast 38 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Massachusetts, 38 votes for Richard Nixon.
Michigan, 46 votes.
Mr. Chairman, the great state of Michigan, the water wonderland of America, and the arsenal of democracy, cast its 46 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Michigan, 46 votes for Richard Nixon.
Minnesota.
Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes, proudly casts its 28 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Minnesota, 28 votes for Richard Nixon.
Mississippi, 12 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Mississippi, the home of the past two Miss Americas, is proud to cast its 12 votes for Richard Nixon.
Mississippi, 12 votes for Richard Nixon.
Missouri, 26 votes.
Mr. Chairman, having no convention fatigue in this delegation, we proudly cast our 26 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Missouri, 26 votes for Richard Nixon.
Montana, 14 votes.
Montana cast 14 votes for Richard M. Nixon, the next President of the United States.
Montana, 14 votes for Richard Nixon.
Nebraska, 18 votes.
Nebraska casts 18 votes for Richard Nixon.
That does it.
Nebraska, 18 votes for Richard Nixon.
Nevada, 12 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Nevada casts its 12 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Nevada.
And as we see by our IBM scoreboard, that puts Richard Milhouse Nixon across as the Republican candidate for the presidency, 1960.
Cast its 14 votes for Richard M. Nixon, the next President of the United States.
New Hampshire, 14 votes for Richard Nixon.
New Jersey, 38 votes.
Mr. Chairman, New Jersey cast 38 votes for Richard Nixon.
New Jersey, 38 votes for Richard Nixon.
New Mexico, 14 votes.
New Mexico cast 14 votes for Richard Milhouse Nixon.
New Mexico, 14 votes for Richard Nixon.
New York.
New York casts its 96 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
New York, 96 votes for Richard Nixon.
South Carolina, 28 votes.
North Carolina.
North Carolina, 28 votes.
North Carolina cast 28 votes for Richard M. Nixon, and it's going to win in North Carolina this year.
North Carolina, 28 votes for Richard Nixon.
North Dakota, 14 votes.
I am happy to say the traditional Republican state of North Dakota will be recorded in the Republican column on November the 8th, and I cast 14 votes for Richard Nixon from North Dakota.
North Dakota, 14 votes for Richard Nixon.
Ohio, 56 votes.
Ohio, the home of the late father of the Vice President, cast 56 votes for Richard Nixon.
Ohio, 56 votes for Richard Nixon.
Oklahoma, 22 votes.
Madam Chairman, Oklahoma cast 22 votes for Richard Nixon.
Oklahoma, 22 votes for Richard Nixon.
Oregon, 18 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Oregon, a neighboring state to the great state of California, proudly casts 18 votes for Dick Nixon.
Oregon, 18 votes for Richard Nixon.
Pennsylvania, 70 votes.
Pennsylvania casts 70 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Pennsylvania, 70 votes for Richard Nixon.
Rhode Island, 14 votes.
Mr. Chairman, the great state of Rhode Island and Providence Plantation proudly gives its 14 votes to the next President of the United States, Richard M. Nixon.
Rhode Island, 14 votes for Richard Nixon.
South Carolina, 13 votes.
Mr. Chairman, the great Palmetto State of South Carolina, firmly convinced and backing the great principles of the Honorable Barry Goldwater, acquiesces to his wishes and casts 13 votes for the next President of the United States, Dick Nixon.
South Carolina, 13 votes for Richard Nixon.
South Dakota, 14 votes.
Mr. Chairman, the great state of South Dakota casts its 14 votes for Richard M. Nixon, next President of the United States.
South Dakota, 14 votes for Richard Nixon.
Tennessee, 28 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Tennessee cast 28 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Tennessee, 28 votes for Richard Nixon.
Texas, 54 votes.
Texas proudly casts its 54 votes for Vice President Richard Nixon, the next President of the United States.
Texas, 54 votes for Richard Nixon.
Utah, 14 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Utah, the Beehive State and the home of Miss Universe, casts its 14 votes for Richard Nixon.
Utah, 14 votes for Richard Nixon.
Vermont, 12 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Vermont, which has voted Republican for 104 years, is proud to cast 12 votes for the next President of the United States, Richard M. Nixon.
Vermont, 12 votes for Richard Nixon.
Virginia, 30 votes.
Virginia carried for Eisenhower in 52 and 56, and will carry for Richard Nixon this year. 30 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Virginia, 30 votes for Richard Nixon.
Washington, 24 votes.
Mr. Chairman, this is William Goodloe, Chairman of the only state in the Union named after George Washington.
Only state in the Union named after George Washington.
Yeah, casting 24 Washingtonian votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Washington, 24 votes for Richard Nixon.
West Virginia, 22 votes.
Mr. Chairman, West Virginia casts its 22 votes for Vice President Richard M. Nixon.
West Virginia, 22 votes for Richard Nixon.
Wisconsin, 30 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Wisconsin cast 30 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Wisconsin, 30 votes for Richard Nixon.
Wyoming, 12 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Wyoming, the equality state, cast 12 votes for Richard Nixon.
Wyoming, 12 votes for Richard Nixon.
District of Columbia, 8 votes.
Mr. Chairman, the District of Columbia, the place where the White House is located, casts its 8 votes for Mr. Nixon.
District of Columbia, 8 votes for Richard Nixon.
Puerto Rico, 3 votes.
Mr. Chairman, Puerto Rico is voting for a staunch friend, the man whom we all hope will be able to sign the Enabling Act for Republican Puerto Rico. We cast our 3 votes for Richard M. Nixon.
Puerto Rico, 3 votes for Richard Nixon.
Virgin Islands, 1 vote.
Mr. Chairman, last but not least, the Virgin Islands cast his one and only vote for Dick Nixon.
The Virgin Islands, 1 vote for Richard Nixon.
So Nixon has 1,321 votes, 10 votes shy of all of those at this Republican convention.
For what purpose does the delegate from Louisiana seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, Louisiana moves that the nomination of the next President of the United States be made unanimous.
Those were the 10 votes in Louisiana that were held out for Nixon.
May the chair suggest to the chairman of the delegation from Louisiana that to make the vote unanimous for Richard M. Nixon, the votes cast for Senator Goldwater should be withdrawn from him and cast for Richard M. Nixon, which action would make the nomination of Richard M. Nixon unanimous.
Mike! Give him the mic! Mr. Chairman, would you give the chairman of the delegation from Louisiana an opportunity to poll his delegation for a minute? I mean, we did not have, it was a motion, excuse me a second, it was a motion by a delegate that the nomination be made unanimous. We did not change the 10 votes, or poll the 10 votes to see that they are specifically changed. The motion is merely that the acclamation, that Richard M. Nixon be nominated then by acclamation.
May the chair say to the gentleman that under the circumstances, the 10 votes being continued for Senator Goldwater, it will be necessary for the tally clerks to announce the vote.